For me too.
Hey, finally. Hello, everyone. Welcome at our regular DevSync. We'll share updates from the Subspace team from the last week and plans for the nearest future. And the first one today will be Ivan.
Sure, yeah. Last week, we finally merged like all the things related to the benchmarking. So finally, we have tracing in the Subspace Farmer. So overall, last week I also discussed like adding the metrics using the tracing. Yeah, but we decided to move on without it because like we have the um, flame graphs which are doing basically the same thing and do the same kind of they add the same kind of overhead on top of the farmer. So so overall we can use that for the testing in future. Um, Apart from that, there were some MISC pull requests related to the, for example, like removing some of the small plots, skipping them if we have someone like partial plot at the last partial plot, which is like less than the 15 gigs. We just omit it and do like n-1 full plots so that we could like utilize better performance of the disk. Yeah. Apart from that, the benchmarking, like printing, it was enhanced a lot. Like we had some nice pretty printing. Yeah. Apart from that, we also reserve right now less space than we did before. Like right now um, we will waste only like 8% of the space for our own needs, like running the object mapping database, like and some other MISC database related to the plots. Yeah, and apart from that, I also added the benchmarks for the recommitting, so that we could test that workflow also. Also, I added some small optimization for the sequential piece writing for the plots, which I just discovered accidentally while I was doing the benchmarks last week. That was a missed one. It just like added three lines to the plot file. In the end, we beforehand we just wrote piece indexes in the database like individually, but we can do that in a batch. So that was also optimized. Yeah, apart from that, I also added the SR 255.19 keys to the lib-p2p. I created the pull request so we could discuss that there, but I guess they won't accept it that easily in the end. So we also decided with Nazar to create our own fork of the lib-p2p and just work with that. Yeah, it is those kind of keys are needed for the DSN so that we could use Academy DHT for the plots, because like we need to fetch pieces which are relative to our plot ID, which is basically SR 255.19 public key in the end. So we need to have those keys in the end. Yeah. As this week, I don't know yet what would I do. As I guess Shamil has finished his onboarding and can do stuff related to the DSN. But after we like manage all those conflicts, yeah, we can decide what I can do this week. But yeah, I guess I will have the DSN on the farmer side. Yeah, that's it from my side.
Any questions, comments to Ivan?
What do you see as Ivan's task for this week, Nazar?
Yeah, we'll have a conversation with Shamil and Ivan. I think we'll start working on the DSN sync. We can do that in parallel with the DSN development itself. So if you have a very small history of the blockchain, we can just pretend that DSN works correctly, and we can just reach out to any random peer and fetch pieces from them. But in the meantime, Shamil can actually work to make it work properly. So I think there are like several things we can do in parallel towards the goal to saturate our development abilities, I guess.
Great.
All right. Thanks, Ivan. Lucian, what was happening on the coupled execution side?
Okay, sure. So last week, most of the time was spent on testing the execution chain, as I thought we'll have it enabled initially. A few issues had been discovered, like the primary block, like existence check while validating the receipt. Previously, I used the block number mapping from the frame system directly, and didn't notice that it will be pruned once its size exceeds the cap. So we need to check the necessary block number mapping in the palette executor. I have proposed a fix and it has been merged. Another problem is that previously the receipts stored on the executor are pruned against the best number of the primary chain. So in that way, some receipts will be possibly pruned before they can be submitted to the primary chain. An obvious symptom is that if the executive node started after the primary chain has produced a lot of blocks, the first receipts will be pruned. So the execution chain justifies since the no receipts are able to be submitted. So
Hey, Lichang, I think we're losing you a little bit. I don't know if, are you guys having trouble hearing him?
Yeah, connection is not
Yeah.
great.
Maybe you just want to turn the video off, Lichang, and try audio only.
okay, so let me try. Settings. Is that better?
It seems to be about the same.
So can you hear me like clearly?
Just breaks up all the time. Maybe you
Yes.
can try to disable video.
Yep.
Yes, I have disabled the video. And
I can still see you.
only.
Maybe you can disable yours.
Okay.
Actually, maybe if we just skip Lichang for a minute and then come back to him at the end after he gets his video settings corrected.
Oh, I think it works.
Okay. Good now.
Okay.
Can I continue or?
Yeah, let's continue. I think it works better now. We can just get it finished.
So the solution is that the executor should prune the local receipts relative to the best execution chain number on the primary chain, like instead of the plain best number of the primary chain. The PR for this is still under review. There are also a few other small PRs useful for Gemini. Basically, I have tested locally that the execution chain is able to be started at any time after the primary chain has started, and that can be resumed even you shut it down for a long time without a proper follow proof though. So this way, the plan is to first have a look and access the long-term fault-proof implementation. So, and that we might discuss again once you enable the executor and test it. So yeah, that's all my updates, I think. Yeah.
I have a question about that. So since you've already fixed the implemented workarounds for that pruning issue, do you think you can try to rebase those changes on the current network we are testing and just try to run it in the meantime to see like if everything except for proofs works. There are like a few nodes. It's
I
better
have,
than local.
I just tested it locally, but I didn't test again the current test. But
Okay.
if you want, actually, I think they are actually the same regarding testing the vector. So I think it should work.
Okay. Okay, I think it's still useful to try to run it against several nodes as compared to local, just in case something pops up.
Yes. But you have decided that we're not have this exactor
Right.
enabled.
Yes.
So we can just
for
deploy it.
testing.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions, comments from the team? All right. I guess it was quite heavy. Serge, what about you?
Yeah, so last week I was mostly focused on Subspace desktop. I submitted 2 PRs, one to edit node name in Subspace desktop UI, and another one was related to fetching peers count. So the problem was that peers method is not safe, and we had it when we launch a node, we only allow safe methods. So I updated that, and now we have that issue fixed. I think one PR was already merged, another one I'm still waiting for the CI jobs to finish. And there were also some issues related to content security policies, which affected WASM execution in production. So some issues were only present in production build, and it took some time to debug. I think most of them were fixed in Ozgun's PRs. And this week, I think desktop will still remain my top priority for the upcoming launch of incentivized testnet. I'm pretty sure there will be some new issues identified. And apart from desktop, I was working on RelayNet deployment. So there were some minor updates for Subspace Relayer to integrate some changes, most recent changes on the runtime. And after that, I deployed everything, and there was an issue with processing blocks, relay chain blocks from archives. I think we changed like encoding or decoding blocks, and maybe we should recreate archives. So I didn't have time to investigate more. So I just restarted Relayer to process blocks from the RPC endpoints. And it worked for some time, but now I just checked before the meeting, it didn't look good. It looks like block production stopped on the RelayNet. So yeah, if I have time this week, I will investigate a little bit more on that. There was another issue with related to Relayer UI. So because we have test A, which is our production and public facing environment at the moment, and it doesn't have all the recent runtime changes, and we have RelayNet, which has everything up to date, and our UI application. So they have two different versions of UI applications, and they both deployed to different URLs, but so we're using this tool called Wrangler, and I was trying to deploy one version to another URL and the newer version to the second URL, but eventually it updated both. So yeah, I fixed that as well. Just had to update some configuration for this Wrangler. And yeah, we also added one parachain, Mangata, on Kusama. And I keep my eyes open for other parachains we have in the pipeline. We still haven't figured out the issue with on-finality endpoints. They sent me a message they couldn't like identify any issue on their side. So yeah, if I have time, I will investigate more and communicate more on that. Yeah, I guess that's all.
On the WASM side, was it the front end part that was initializing, right? It wasn't the
Wait.
node.
On the WASM, you mean CSP?
Okay, yeah, I think so. Okay. Yeah, I was just afraid that it's something on the node side where there is like native runtime and WASM runtime, and we're still using native on Windows for performance reasons. Okay. Any other questions to Serge from the team?
Yeah, Serge. So could you talk more about the issue with the encoding blocks that the archives aren't working anymore?
So because currently in the runtime, we decode relay chain blocks. And if we submit blocks from archive, decoding fails. But if we fetch blocks from the RPC, they are decoded without any issue. So I will have to check and compare if there any difference. And yeah, probably we'll have to create archives from scratch. Because
But I mean-
previously we just didn't decode blocks on the runtime, so it worked just fine.
Okay. So we're not storing them in the proper format, it sounds like. It's just, okay. I just don't think it will ever finish. Like it will take weeks for it to sync from the RPC. I imagine it would be very, very slow to sync like from Genesis every single pair chain and both relay chains. So I just don't know if that's really going to work or if it's just going to run for a long time and then we're just going to restart it. Like it might be faster to sync the archives, to resync the archives than to do that, honestly.
What do you mean by resync archives?
Well, that was the other, like to rewrite the archives, that was the other option Serge said he's probably going to have to do because they're not formatted correctly the way they're stored.
Yeah.
Did I misunderstand that?
I think if you are not storing like justifications and probably something else isn't quite right, then we do need to recreate it sooner or later. So you better start like today and finish it in 3 weeks than a week later and finish in a month from today.
Yeah, I need to investigate anyway. What's the problem? Is it justifications only, or maybe there was also something with extrinsics, as far as I remember, like a few months ago. So maybe it's not just justifications. So anyway, I will identify the problem and then we can decide.
Okay, so in the meantime, do we have a version of Relay, like an old version of RelayNet, which is still working?
We have test A, which is working or was working at least the last time I checked, and we have a RelayNet.
But that has no validation.
Right.
Yes, currently it doesn't have validation.
Okay.
Because validation requires to update relayer, so it will process blocks like in 2 directions.
Okay.
As we discussed last week.
Okay. So it sounds, all right, I guess we'll talk about that offline. Regarding the naming conventions, I thought we were going to switch to like the sequential alphanumeric names versus
Right, but that's for RelayNet. RelayNet A is the current one that we are working on.
What about for testnet?
There will be no testnet anymore. It's just the one that we didn't shut down yet.
Right.
Okay, because RelayNet A is not actually working yet.
Right.
Okay, got it. And are we doing that for Gemini as well?
Gemini is just Gemini 1, and the next one will be Gemini 2.
But if
Just
we
like
like do hard forks across, like if we have to reset it?
That's a very good question.
Okay, I think we should probably start doing that, like 1A, 1B.
Well, let's discuss it offline, I guess.
Okay. Okay, that's all the questions I had. Thanks, Serge.
Okay, let's switch to Ved then, since he joined.
Okay. Hey everyone. Okay, my end was supporting Nazar into getting the Gemini testnet up and running. I wouldn't call it testnet. I think Gemini 1 network up and running, mostly focused on Terraform. Last week, along with some discussions around partition validation, Gemini also do take a look at it. We can discuss that partition validations in scope during the integration sync, but if you have any questions there. But for me, this week or the future plans is mostly getting started on the partition validation implementation. If everyone's on the board with it, with no concerns around the implementation, and also support Nazar on the Gemini, the network. We did see some issues with Cloudflare, completely unrelated to the network itself, but I'm gonna still follow up with them so that we can make our DevOps much more automated. I've reached out to their support. They have yet to finish it up, but I'll keep. I'll be in touch with them if that doesn't work out. That has been it so far.
Anything outside of the DevOps stuff for this week?
For this week, partition validation implementation, like getting started with that at least. And so most of the work could be started at least on the verification side on the runtime, and pulling out the required dependencies. We are going to use MMR that Polkadot already uses, so I think it should be a straightforward integration into our crates as well. That is the main focus for this week, though. Like supporting the DevOps one is basically just whenever I need to, if not more.
Okay. Ved, yeah, I'd like it if you could focus on supporting DevOps and then getting RelayNet working as well. We were just having a discussion with Serge about issues with
Okay.
RelayNet, and the feeds validation is still not working. There's some unresolved issues there. Regarding the parachain validation, I did look at that, and it makes sense that it has to be done that way. However, there might be some changes in the way that we're going to be doing archiving and validation that might lead to some rework around that plan. So I want you to hold on any implementation of parachain validation until we have a chance to discuss that.
Okay, perfect.
And I think we should have a chance like tomorrow or Wednesday at the latest to talk on that.
Okay, perfect. Then, yeah, I think I can focus on the DevOps side at least for now until we come to a conclusion on that.
Okay.
I can sync with so post this meeting regarding that. Don't wanna repeat it again. Okay.
Well, I think Jeremiah will be busy right after this meeting for the next couple of hours.
Okay.
You're talking about the RelayNet validation with Serge, right? Good. Yeah, I don't need to be at that.
Okay, that's fine. All right, thanks, Ved. Justin, what's on your side?
Yeah. So last week, continuing to iterate and improve on the support framework, preparing the last few materials that are kind of needed prior to what we're calling stage 3. From there, once we have that prepared, we'll start really pushing to users to have them start creating posts and everything. We should really start to see the forum action ramp up after that. Ozgun and Serge rather had the new release of Subspace Desktop last week. So I was testing that over the weekend and started testing 5.1 yesterday once that came out, continuing to move forward on that. There was also the new snapshot that was released last week that I was attempting to test, but I was having some issues with my testing computer, so I got that finalized this morning and going to be getting that going. We do also have our internship program coming up. We have our first intern starting here in a couple weeks. So I'm going to be preparing and finalizing the details on that program so they're ready to go once they get started and they can kind of hit the ground running. And we also had our presentation last week for the Subspace Fund Committee. So just preparing and continuing to iterate on that. Obviously not a huge priority with some of the updates and goals we have in the next couple weeks, but just something that's kind of been working on in the back burner. And one thing I wanted to make sure I get out before our launch of our incentivized testnet here in the future is Discord safety and incident response plan. Just because we may, around that time, once we see real liquidity on the network, that's definitely when we'll start to see a ramp up in, attempted scams and those kinds of things. So just want to make sure we're all prepared for that as well.
Yeah, I don't think any kind of liquidity is a concern because we have
Cool.
balances disabled, but yeah.
But yeah, just once that's in people's mind, definitely starts to ramp up a little bit. Just the word incentivized testnet, bring the sharks out of the water.
You can always just sell your private keys.
Right. Okay.
Uh,
Any questions, comments to Justin?
Yeah, Justin, can you walk us through what the plan is for the cross-platform testing of 5.1, and when you think we'll be able to get a release out if we don't see any bugs?
Yeah, so 5.1, it's about 25% the way synced on my computer. So I started it about a little bit late yesterday, maybe early mid-afternoon. So at current speeds, we're looking at it finalized syncing probably around later today, or mid tomorrow, early tomorrow. I haven't had any bugs so far, other than one minor that I don't know. Serge, you mentioned that the node renaming PR was submitted. I can't rename my node on 5.1, but I wasn't sure if that was available in this release yet.
It was
No,
just
it's not.
merged.
Okay. Yeah. So other than that, though, I haven't had any major problems just yet. So far so good.
Was it on the hard drive?
No,
Or
I'm sorry?
why is it so slow?
It's an SSD. My internet speed's been a little bit wonky over the past couple days. But
Is the SSD almost full?
let's see. I have about 50 gigabytes available. It's a
Okay, that makes
256
sense.
gig.
Right, it makes sense. It just that's why it gets lower. Okay.
I'll try and free up some space then to try and improve that if I can.
Oh, so if you get near the capacity of the SSD, then the performance gets really
It
bad?
gets really bad. Yeah, it gets really bad. And if you don't run trim on it to actually free some of the cells.
Should we put that note in the release notes or in the documentation for the users?
That's debatable. There are so many of those things that we could have described.
Yeah.
Maybe a separate file for optimizations.md, something like that. And README can refer to it for the ones who are interested.
Or gotchas, what might be the reason for the thing that you're seeing. Okay.
I think you had your hand up, Ivan. Did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, I just want to say that I've tested the Linux build of the 0.5.1. Yeah, and it works flawlessly. I didn't discover any bugs. Yeah, I ran it on the HDD and everything's fine. It synced in 70 minutes or something. Yeah, so everything's well.
Great. And for how big of a plot?
I don't remember, unfortunately. Yeah, but I think fully. I didn't wait till it produced the block because it would took a tremendous amount of time. Yeah. Yeah, they didn't measure the plot size, unfortunately.
Okay. So you're doing Linux, Ivan. Justin, you're doing Windows?
Correct. And then
So
I
that's
believe.
And
Oh,
I'm doing Mac.
Yeah, I was going to do Mac.
Is Windows using native WASM?
For now, the PR that actually fixes performance was already merged. I don't think we'll include it in the nearest snapshot, but we will include after. I just don't want to break more things. But it's already fixed upstream. So we'll switch to WASM as soon as we have the second upgrade.
Okay. Do you have any estimate when that will be?
We'll see. Maybe in a week, maybe in a two.
Okay.
It works the way it is. It works and it's fast. Just don't want to break more things potentially.
Okay. Actually, I had somebody reach out to me on Discord yesterday and tell me Windows was painfully slow for them. They were trying to do it from the node.
It depends on which version they are. If they're on 0.3.3, it will be slow.
From the CLI, not from the desktop app.
Okay, if you can like forward them somewhere to the public channel so we can chat with them.
Yeah, I did, but I'm
Okay, just tag me then. We'll figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah. Okay. And Oskin, you're testing Mac.
That's true, and as Ivan said, like same situation with Linux, everything is perfect. It's synced fully. I didn't wait for a farm to block because it will take too much time. But every functionality I've been tried is working out of the box. So it's good.
Okay, so as soon as you sync, Justin, we can do a release.
Yeah.
Okay, and then are we going to do an announcement on that?
Maybe.
Before that, like, don't we want to test it internally for the team? Oh, that's for another.
Can we not
thing.
start that now?
I'll reach out to the team and get them going immediately.
Okay, yeah, let's get the team started.
Definitely.
Okay.
Do you want me to get the ambassadors running on it too?
Sure, that would be
Sounds
great.
good.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll send an announcement out to them this morning.
awesome.
Okay, that seems like a good progress on the desktop side. Ozgan, is there anything more to talk about it?
Yeah, I can give a quick summary. There were two main bugs that were preventing us to at least pre-release 0.5 series. One of them was we were not able to start a WASM instance instead of inside of our application, desktop application. It was due to some CSP restrictions. We fixed it. And the second one was the front end was not able to connect to Node, and that was due to actually a silly bug. We also fixed that. We can talk about that in detail in the desktop meeting, but for that, yeah, we covered most of the things. So yeah, everything is fine now in the desktop. We are just testing it, and as soon as we confirm it's stable, we will be releasing it.
And I believe there were also improvements to the port selection, so we don't overlap with the CLI anymore, so we can have them running side by side.
Exactly. We choose different ports and less common ports, so it should be less conflicting with every other application, in fact.
Oskin, can you reach out to Todd?
Mhm.
He has some ideas about running the desktop app as a service in Windows. So currently, if you log out of Windows, it won't run in the background, even if you have the computer
I see.
running. And he was
I
able to kind of hack his desktop app so that he could run it as a service. So when he's logged out, it still runs. But if you can just check with him, he can explain it to you. And it would be great if we could get that like implemented as an improvement into the desktop app on Windows.
Of course, and I believe it should be the same case for Mac and Linux as well. So I don't think when I log out, the application will function. I never tested that.
It's a little bit different to different operating systems. I think we can start with Windows as the most popular desktop for users. And if you can start it in the engineering chat somewhere so I can follow it, that would be nice.
Sure, of course. All right, we'll do.
Okay, thank you. Shamil, any updates on your onboarding?
Sure. I'm starting the work on the DSN. I'm reading the related papers and the current code. We will have a call with Nazar to plan the work tomorrow, and probably another call with Ivan later this week if he has time. And that's it.
Okay, finally comes to the end your onboarding. Daria, anything you would like to share today?
Sorry, I was getting trouble on muting my microphone as usual. I mean, I'm still just on the Ethereum book, so I'm still a long way from the finishing my onboarding. But I'm listening in your guys' updates, trying to, get into the context of things.
Okay, that's great. Let me share my updates on my side then. It was quite an intensive week. We've done a bunch of things from like upgrading Substrate and issuing the last snapshot for the current farmnet, like the final destination of it, to breaking a whole bunch of things that were like legacy. another protocol for compatibility reasons or other reasons, and was preparing a lot of groundwork for the incentivized testnet that is upcoming in the nearest future, and implemented the thing that will increase the reward frequency for farmers. That is the initial implementation of the voting mechanism, basically where farmers can solve additionally with a smaller difficulty and contribute to the blockchain with a vote that votes on a particular block, and that vote will be included as part of the upcoming block, and then rewards will be given not only to block authors but also to voters. So that should hopefully increase the frequency of rewards by about 10x, and that means that if you were waiting for 30 hours on average to get a reward, you will get reward in about 3 hours, which is quite nice. And we can still play with that number in the future. Just will require some more updates to make it properly. Yeah, I think that's a very short description. There was quite a lot of actual engineering work behind it. Any questions to me about any of this, or maybe other general comments? All right, Jeremiah, anything you want to mention before we wrap up?
No, not today.
Okay, thanks everyone for watching then, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place.